Jesus' name,
Some
amen.
nights, I mean, as a spectator, it just looks like sometimes they're just not there for whatever reason.
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to what is the inaugural episode of FUON, and that stands for the fierce urgency of now. I am your host, Council Member SHAUM McMillan, straight out of District 8. Pleased to be here. I want to start with a note of thanks to WIDU for having us this morning. Thank you for the space that we have to come and express ourselves. I'm going to talk in just a little bit about what you can expect to see from this show on a regular basis. Some of the topics that we're going to be hitting heavy on. Before I do that, though, I want to just extend a warm welcome to my guest this morning, KRISTEN. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and talk about what brought you here, other than an invitation, because I did invite you. But what are some of the things that have brought you into your work in this community?
Okay, thank you so much, Sean, again for having me. I was very honored that you even invited me to this. My name is KRISTEN Starks. I am a Fayetteville resident. I am a nurse, and I am a community organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation here in Fayetteville. Basically, we are a national organization with branches all throughout the country, and our mission is to fight for working class power. To fight for a new system in which regular people like you and me have power and we're able to use it, to create a system in which people and the planet are prioritized, meeting our needs rather than profit. So that's what we're fighting for, and that involves fighting for all different issues that impact working class people, whether it's fighting against racism and sexism, fighting against the oppression of working class people in the workplace, but also special types of oppression, for example, standing up for our immigrant community, all different types of issues. We believe that they're all connected, and so it's our duty to fight for all of them and to fight for a new system in which we can actually address these issues that plague our society today.
Right on. I appreciate that work. Can you talk about some of the recent work that your organization has done here in Fayetteville?
Yes. So we are involved in all different struggles, like I say. Currently, a big focus of our work is immigrant rights. I think we've all seen the escalated attacks against our immigrant community under the Trump administration. Of course, understanding that ICE and anti-immigrant sentiment and policy is not new to the country, but it has definitely been escalated since Trump has been in office for the second term. And so we have been fighting to build the immigrant rights movement and to defend our immigrant families, defend our immigrant community. We've also done some work related to policing and surveillance, specifically in Fayetteville. We've also do a variety of different work in terms of trying to build up the movement among students, and I can talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like soon. And of course, we're always constantly building, promoting political education, promoting community building, doing outreach and speaking to our neighbors here in Fayetteville. So we have our hands in a lot of different things.
Right on. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for the work, especially when you're talking about working with students, working with young folks here in the community. If you look back at the civil rights movement, even if you look back at the history of Fayetteville would not be desegregated. We wouldn't have black members on the city council if it weren't for brave students, mostly from the campus of FSU, that stood up way back in the 60s, in the early 60s at that. And I think what I've sensed is sometimes there's a disconnection between the vanguard and the old guard. And what I hope to see in the future is more investment into our future, more investment into giving voice to the vanguard, to the people who are morally committed already And a lot of those in our society today are young folks who aren't set in the status quo mindset. And I appreciate what you're doing on that front. Also, we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about immigrants' rights. What's heavy on my heart this morning is what's going on in Minneapolis. I detest the actions of our federal agents from ICE and CBP out in Minneapolis. And also, I push back against the mindset that says that that's just a distant national issue. I embrace the opportunity to have discussions here in Fayetteville about what our shared values are and what we can do to protect residents. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but that's something I'm looking forward to developing here in Fayetteville, especially a city council policy that puts our values forward, that says we see what's going on around the country in different municipalities, and this is what we want for our municipality and our residents. I'm going to save that. I'm going to start just with an introduction to everyone who's tuning in to the fierce urgency of now. I'm going to go back to a couple weeks ago, the Martin Luther King brunch that the Ministerial Council had. And I'm still inspired by a message that was given by Pastor Brian Thompson, the AME. He delivered a message that's been ringing in my ears ever since I heard it. KRISTEN, he said, "Now ain't the time to be scared." He said this to a crowd of more than 1,500 people. He delivered a charge in that speech that we need to tap into our courage in ways that our civil rights forefathers have, and stand up to the things that we know are wrong in this day and time. He said those words, and he also said that what we have, the things that we have, are rights that we should be fighting for, our rights. And he said fear is a luxury we cannot afford. And just a couple of months ago, just as I was meeting people in the community, talking about my role in the city council, I made a commitment to the people of Fayetteville, and especially to District 8. Shout out to Western Fayetteville and everybody out on the Hoke County line, everybody off of Hoke Loop, off of Cliffdale Road. I made a commitment to you about transparency and accountability. And what I hope to do in the coming months on this show is have a space for that level of transparency and accountability. I'm committed to avoiding the kind of backroom dealing and willful ignorance of things like data, hard data, and ignorance to things like matters of constitutionality. And I think those things have plagued our local government here in Fayetteville. The closer that I get to it, KRISTEN, the more I'm concerned and the more I'm convinced that things need to change. And I'll talk a little bit about what I've seen behind the scenes. I want to tap into personal courage in ways that compel me to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. So this morning, I want to talk to everyone about what that means in practice. This show is going to be different from what you're used to hearing. We're not going to talk about the price of tea in China. We'll chop it up about some of the things that are going on currently, but I really do want to get into some hard issues about what's going on in the City Hall. I'm going to speak with candor about what goes on behind the scenes at City Hall. I'm going to talk about the dynamics, the decisions, some of the dysfunction, and some of the moments of collective progress on the City Council. I'm going to do my best to speak truthfully and, when necessary, to name names without attacking anyone's character. I want to be clear about my boundaries. For anybody listening, I am prohibited from discussing pending legal cases that are at the city, and I'm going to honor that restriction. I have enough respect for our city staff also to shield them from public scrutiny for their actions or policy stances, because I feel like the buck stops here in terms of the council. What the staff does is directed by the council. And staff members, their job is to implement policy. They don't set policy. So I want to make sure that boundary is respected, and they don't deserve they deserve protection from any political pressure. Me as an elected official, I expect pressure, I expect criticism, but I don't expect that to apply to staff members on the city that work for the city. I also want to pronounce a commitment to honor the relationships that I've formed with my fellow council members and the sanctity of some of our one-on-one conversations and communications. What we discuss privately will stay privately, but I want to make this distinction too, and this is something my colleagues can understand. Something is important enough for a colleague to send out in a group mail to all of us council members. I've seen some alarming stuff already, KRISTEN. Or if you're comfortable enough to say it in an open meeting, then it's fair game for public discussion. I'm gonna bring that energy into our candid discussions in this show. Because if you're willing to share it with 15 people in government, the public has a right to know about it too. I want my candor to bring about a shift in the culture of the city of Fayetteville. I want us to move towards a critical examination of facts that bear on the matters before us. I want us to move away from toxic cliques and backstabbing. I want us to move towards intellectual conversations that lead to sound policy and an affirmation of shared values. Recently, I had a conversation with somebody who claimed that often the best interest of the government is the polar opposite of the interests of the people. Somebody actually said that to me. And I've been thinking about that statement ever since I heard it. I have to say, my time in office so far has only strengthened my belief that opposition to the interests of the people is at the crux of everything that's been wrong with government for too long. And we need to get out of that mindset that it's us versus them. It should be us for them, us with them, and all power to the people. When we prioritize political expediency over people's needs, when we protect institutional power instead of vulnerable communities, when we serve corporate interests instead of working families, we're choosing government over people. And that's a choice that I just refuse to make. Silence in the face of the dysfunction is complicity. As author and historian Kelly Carter Jackson says, I refuse. So I refuse to be silent. I refuse to go along to get along, and I refuse to pretend that everything is fine when it's not. So what we will do on this show, we're going to deep dive into policy. We're going to talk about the levers of power in government. We're going to talk about some of the meetings that you all may not know about that actually play a big part in policymaking in Fayetteville. We're going to talk about how those levers work and who controls them. We're going to inform everyone who's listening about what's really happening in our city government, and hopefully we're going to give aid and comfort to the people and organizations like your organization, KRISTEN, the PSO, the organizations that are working for the positive change in Fayetteville. We're here to do what Dr. King understood when he talked about the fierce urgency of now. He said, we're now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now in this unfolding conundrum of life and history. There is such a thing as being too late. So this is the fierce urgency of now. Like Pastor Brian Thompson said, now ain't the time to be scared. And right now the stakes are too high to be scared. Right now we must be willing to fight for all of us. So that includes my opening statement about that, what you can expect from this show. Want to go ahead and hop into, if you're good with it, KRISTEN, the first of the policy issues.
Absolutely.
That we're going to discuss. They're going to impact everybody in Fayetteville. First one I wanted to discuss is something that came up in the first work session of the year. So at the top of the year, I'm a brand new council member coming in. It was only my second real meeting. And in this work session, there is space to talk about a policy that focuses on demonstrations here in Fayetteville. And, I thought that as a city council member, I could get through a significant portion of the year before I saw something entertained that should not even be on an agenda. I do agree it's important to go back and look at policies on a periodic basis. What I've seen is a focus, is an ugly focus on tamping down on First Amendment rights here in Fayetteville. I've seen it in practice even as an organizer. I've seen discrepancy and variance in the ways that these policies are enforced, mostly enforced in a way that tamps down on people who are critical of local government. that's something straight out of like an authoritarian nightmare. And I've been sad to witness that through the last several years here in Fayetteville. But imagine I'm just coming into council. I'm still eager to talk about real policy and talk about things that actually move us forward. And I see that some of my colleagues really want to bring in and attempt to tamp down on demonstrations top of the year, as if that's where our focus should be. And that was disappointing. That has been disappointing. For anybody that hasn't looked at this, understand that it has gone back to a work session, it has gone back to staff, and will come up in either a work session or a special meeting in the future. Within the next 30 to 60 days, it'll be back. But what this ordinance talked about was something that I thought was very, very foolish. It put like a system of protective bubbles around outdoor patios and businesses downtown. It went a little bit further in terms of what it requires from organizations that are picketing or demonstrating. It actually spells out a requirement to self-report, as if you can be penalized for not reporting, for not applying to assemble. And we know our right to assembly is a constitutional right. We know our right to free speech is constitutional. And there have been many legal challenges across the country to laws like this. Those were brought up in the work session, I think effectively enough to kick this down the road and cause for more serious consideration. But Kristen, I wanted to ask you, somebody who's been on the streets, who's been a part of demonstrations, who's a part of what is effective change and who understands what the city has even had to go through to get to where we are today. What's your thoughts were when you learned about this ordinance, this demonstration ordinance, and the amendments that have been proposed?
I frankly agree that it's absolutely foolish. And I think one thing that we really need to recognize is, like you said, every policy, no matter how carefully it's written, it always comes down to who has power and who will be enforcing it. And throughout history, both federally, on the state level, on the local level, what we have seen is that those who are in power will interpret and manipulate and utilize the law in whatever way they see fit to serve their interests. And oftentimes, and you said this, the interests of those in power is completely adverse to the interests of the people, right? And so this policy is, I believe, outright like you said, an infringement upon our First Amendment rights, but it's also a very slippery slope. And you can say, whatever you want about the minute details. In some ways, it may not be seen as a super crazy restrictive thing, but a lot of times the way policies work is that you put something out and you see what will people tolerate, what will people take, right? And then even once this policy is implemented, again, the way it could be enforced, it's leaving all of these things up to police discretion. One of the parameters or details is that basically it gives empowers the police to break up any demonstration that they feel has become too, I'm trying to remember the exact word, but it places restrictions on the type of words that can be used, right? I think the word is like fighting words, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm here to fight. Am I inciting violence? Absolutely not. But the struggles that we engage in are fights. They are fights for our rights. They are fights to build people's power. And those things are fights because power is not just handed down by the people who have it to the people. That's just not how that works. Every right that we've ever had in this country, we fought for. And so to this vague language around fighting words is very dangerous because who decides what is a fighting word? It won't be me. It won't be you. Well, you're now in a position of power. But oftentimes it's going to be the police and the people who have every interest in suppressing the people's movement. And so these things are super dangerous, and it's up to people to resist, because we will only have what we take. And we have to refuse to take this, because it could be so detrimental. One of the restrictions, so one of the things that I do on a daily, weekly basis is community outreach, right? We're talking to our neighbors, we're talking to our people, because how else do we build the movement, right? This ordinance places restrictions on demonstrations of even one person. So I can't go physically up to somebody and speak to them about an issue that impacts them, impacts me, impacts our community. And of course, it will be left up to enforcement, but you have to consider, what are the interests of the people that are enforcing these things? Do they want us speaking out against what city council is doing when city council does some things that are unjust? No. And who is in cahoots in terms of enforcing these policies? So we really have to think about this and what the actual ramifications are, even beyond the minute details.
And we're going to hold that. We're about to go into a break, Kristen. I just wanted to capture something you said that goes back to what Frederick Douglass talked about. Power concedes nothing without a demand. People all have heard that. The other part of that is those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want the rain without thunder and lightning. It is ironic that on a council that is majority black, where we would not have our positions, this would not be a desegregated city if it weren't for protests, if it weren't for people being willing to disrupt, yes, even restaurants. Think about the Greensboro Four, right? Woolworth. It is absolutely insane that we have a majority black council that is fascinated, it seems like obsessed with tamping down on protest, on demonstrations in a harmful way. Appreciate you bringing those points out, Kristen. I think we're going to go to break now. We're going to come back on the other end and talk about some of the other policies that are impacting us. You're listening to FUON, the fierce urgency of now. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Oh man. 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 Oh man.
The North Carolina Court of Appeals is set to hear arguments today on an election board power shift favoring the GOP. Stein versus Hall deals with the state's controversial power shift that stripped Democratic Governor Josh Stein of his appointments to powerful state and local election boards is headed to court. More snow may be coming to the state of North Carolina, according to meteorologists. The extreme cold is affecting farm operations in North Carolina, too, according to Ag Commissioner Steve Troxler. Nationally, it's cold, too. There's been a lot of snow, record snow in some area for this time of year, and also record cold. CBS News has learned ICE Commander Greg Bovino and some of his agents are leaving the Twin Cities in Minnesota in the wake of the killing of Alex Preddy by federal agents. Mike Rayleigh, NCN News.
I'm Jamie Monticelli, WIDU Radio News. Cumberland County Schools operate on an asynchronous remote learning day today. All after-school activities are canceled, prime time is closed, and district offices and buildings are closed with staff working remotely. During the asynchronous remote learning day, students complete grade-level assignments prepared by their teachers. There will be no live video sessions or required login times. On January 25th at about 9:30 p.m., Fayetteville Police Department officers were sent out to the 5200 block of North Sumac Circle on reports of shots being fired. Officers arrived on scene and found an adult male and two adult females suffering from gunshot wounds. Another adult male was located on the scene suffering what appeared to be a stab wound. One adult male and one adult female, both suffering from gunshot wounds, were pronounced deceased at the scene. The second adult female suffering from a gunshot wound and the second adult male with possible stab wounds were taken to a local hospital. From WIDU Radio, I'm Jamie Munn.
Tuesday morning starting out with cold weather advisories due to the combination of bitter cold and a little bit of wind out there. Hope you're finding ways to stay warm and well dressed for it. Heading into the afternoon, mostly sunny, breezy, highs in the upper 30s and lower 40s. Overnight, clear to at times partly cloudy and temperatures in the 20s. Then by Wednesday afternoon, increasing sunshine, high temperatures about 40 to 45 degrees. For the North Carolina News Network, I'm meteorologist Chris Michaels in the Weather Center.
If you're on Medicare, scammers may target you to steal your identity. Remember, Medicare will never call you asking for personal details. The NC Department of Insurance Senior Medicare Patrol program is here to protect you from fraud and provides you with knowledge to stay safe. Contact SMP today at ncship.com or call toll-free at 855-408-1212.
Project supported by grants from the Administration for Community Living. Contents do not necessarily represent official views of, nor an endorsement by ACL, HHS, or the U.S. government.
Special technique of shadow boxing.
Oh man.
Special technique of shadow
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man.
shadow boxing.
Oh man.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You are now tuning in to the Fierce Urgency of Now. I'm your host, Councilmember Shaun McMillan. I'm joined by my guest, KRISTEN Starks. And what we've been talking about is just a focus on the real agenda items, the real policies that are impacting Fayetteville right now. Some of the things you might not have heard about, some of the things you will hear about if you attend certain meetings, especially our city council meetings, especially our work sessions. And I want to start, just before we talk about this next policy, about two little-known meetings that I want to make sure that the public is welcome to, that are not well attended. One is the dinner meeting that happens prior to our first regular meeting of the month, which is on the second Monday of every month. What happens routinely, and I think City View did a good job of kind of exposing this, is we meet in a very small room upstairs on the third floor. It is an open meeting, so it's open to public, but it's not an environment where all of the public can fit. And during that meeting, we talk about what's on the consent agenda. Those are things that are really consented by the full council to move forward without discussion. And those are really important meetings, because you'll hear some of the objections to things that are discussed later on in the council meeting. Other meeting I wanted to talk about that's not well known, and I didn't even know about it till I was on council, is a policies committee meeting. And that's important because right now we've designated 3 council members that have a lot of power in determining the amendments to current policies, to current city law, municipal law. And what that does is it in another time when it's a very small setting, that happens on the third Thursday of every month. It gives an imbalanced amount of power to a small group of council members to determine what the agenda is going to be, to determine what laws are going to apply. So the law that Chris and I just finished discussing, the proposed amendments to the demonstration policy, that came through the Rules Committee or the Policy Committee. And this other one I wanted to talk to you about, KRISTEN, it snuck through the Policy Committee just a couple of Thursdays ago. And this is a policy that's going to be on the consent agenda for our next meeting that I hope that you all will be engaged in addressing. It is changes to the public hearing. And I sat in on that policy meeting, and what I heard was an amendment that says that instead of 5:15 being the cutoff for your public comments, for signing up for public comments, we're going to move it now to 11:59 the day before. So most of us are working class people. Most of us are people with jobs, with responsibilities. I think if we should extend the opportunity to sign up for public comment. Some cities even do it up to the last minute, like they take up the list A lot of times it's on paper at the last minute. Now we've moved to an electronic format. But what they're saying is even with this electronic format, we expect you to sign up the day before the public hearing. So that moves away from transparency. It moves away from democratic practice. It moves to something that's more restrictive. So I had some issues with that. I had issues even with what was said in the policy committee meeting, because this was pointed in, and this was phrased in terms mostly by the Mayor Pro Tem as a policy that should maintain order. He made some very out of order comments about tamping down on misinformation during the meeting. And that those should be in the minutes of the meeting that took place. I got the sense that instead of our white glove policy for the city being all about customer service, being welcoming to what the community has to say, this policy was more restrictions. It was moving away from transparency, is moving away from accountability, and it was moving towards limiting instead of opening it up to opportunities for the public to speak. I also made objections during that meeting to something I've seen Mayor Colvin do pretty often, is address what he thinks is misinformation or disinformation during the meeting to people in the public forum. That is already against the rules that are stated, but it's something that happens on a regular basis. It just happened at the last meeting with my friend Ben Holtquist. He talked about the city being one of the least bikables, and the mayor, corrected him wrongly, loud and wrong, corrected Ben. Ben knew what he was talking about, and Ben, since then, to his credit, sent the whole council the receipts. This is where I got that information from. He was right. It's just not our place as council members in a time that's designated for public to talk, to spin it in any way, or to feel like we need to manipulate or control what they say. The last thing I wanted to bring up before I toss it over to you for your input and your thoughts on this, Kristen. There is something called viewpoint discrimination. You talked about a little bit with this other policy, the demonstration policy. It is possible for us as council members to create an environment that chills democratic practice when we do things like interfere in a public hearing. We have a viewpoint that it comes from a place of power, as police do when they're enforcing the law, and we need to be cognizant of that and the ways that it can tamp down on democratic practice. But I want to see Kristen, somebody who also has participated in public comment and public forum, or what you think of this proposed amendment.
Honestly, the first thing I still am questioning is what disorder has there been? Because I don't think I've seen much gross disorder. So, and I'm always very wary when that word is thrown around. Yeah. The words law and order are often a very, often a dog whistle, especially for particular racist agendas. Often, and so you mentioned the irony that we have a majority Black council representing a very Black city. With a city with a significant Black population, and these are the words that are being used. So that's my first question: what disorder is happening? And then, like you said, I did not hear any rationale within what you mentioned that suggests that this amendment would be intended to do anything other than restrict people's opportunity to speak. Right. If you are a council, it's your job. Theoretically, it should be your job to hear what the people want to say. Yeah. So what would motivate you to hear fewer people out on? If you are motivated enough and concerned enough to come to a city council meeting, like you said, these are working class people, right? We are busy, we work, we have children, we have things to do. And if we are taking the time out of our day to sign up for public comment, why would you not want to hear what we have to say? And so just a lot of questions in my head.
I urge you to look deeper into this and show up when it's being discussed. I am going to request that it be pulled from the consent agenda for full discussion in front of everybody, in front of the entire city. In defense of the members of that policy committee and the Mayor Pro Tem especially, what I heard the mayor pro tem say is that he's felt threatened in the past. I miss those meetings. I've never seen anything that should require a guard up at the front, or should require restrictive language on what's said in a meeting. I haven't seen that, but I do respect his feeling that he has felt threatened. I do respect the feelings of staff. I do want to move in a way that says that we are human as well, that we deserve respect. However, there are constitutional issues at play. The First Amendment, freedom of speech especially. And then I had the privilege, the honor of being with the School of Government of UNC earlier this week. And we talked about some court cases that I've asked the city attorney to look deeply into. One is the State versus Barthel. This is an incident that actually had the county of Avery in North Carolina be sued by somebody who was in a public comments, used some expletives, was barred from, and also had a sign up and was barred from further participation, sued and won in the state of North Carolina. And this is something that's recent. Then there's also a Cabarrus County settlement that just happened recently here in North Carolina. And then there's an ongoing case in Monroe, North Carolina, to deal with the same policy. And one of the things I urge my colleagues to do is and especially the city attorney's office, is to flag matters of constitutionality, and let's take these things seriously. We're at a time when our federal government, like you mentioned up top, is taking liberty with rights that we all have. First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights especially. And they are disregarding rights that we've had in this country. They haven't always been honored fully. But again, we may not have the power to impact things that are going on in Minnesota, but we damn sure do have the power to talk about how we protect constitutional rights here in the city of Fayetteville. So I want everybody, if you can, to take a look at what's going on with these amendments to the public hearing. Another thing that I see coming down the pike too is a strict adherence to the 30-minute limit. And I think that what could happen there is we freeze the ability of more people to be heard. And I think we should even have some leeway in terms of how many people get to speak to per night. I want to move on too, because we talked about what's going on nationally, and I've seen a lot of things online about what happened with Renee Nicole Good. KRISTEN, I appreciate you and PSL for holding space in Fayetteville, for memorializing her, but also honoring the fact that we need to fight everywhere to make sure that we don't give in to authoritarianism and fascism as it's manifested, we've seen it manifested in Minneapolis and so many other cities. Appreciate the courage and the conviction with which y'all brought that forward. Since then, there's been 2 other homicides by ICE in the city of Minneapolis. Since then, I've taken the opportunity to send forward some options to the city council just recently, Friday, for how we proactively approach ICE involvement in municipalities. We can follow the example of cities like Carrboro, like Chapel Hill, like Durham, that have kind of leaned forward and made statements that said that we honor the life, we honor the value of our immigrant neighbors especially, and cities all across the United States that are now seeing that this is a municipal issue when these elements, ICE and CBP, are coming into our cities. And we need to think about what goes into our level of protection for the residents that we are bound to serve and to protect. I wanted to get your thoughts on what you're seeing generally across the country in North Carolina and even in Minneapolis. Kristen, what your thoughts are about what should happen here in Fayetteville when it comes to federal paramilitary operations in municipalities?
That's a big question. So, of course, I, like so many people, have been absolutely horrified by what's been happening in Minneapolis and what's been happening across the country. Let us not forget that ICE and Border Patrol were operating in North Carolina just as recently as November. And so I was a part of the mobilizations to defend our immigrant community in Durham and Raleigh and the Triangle. They were also in Charlotte, of course. And so I think some of the biggest impressions that I currently have is, what is the role of people in defending our immigrant communities, right? And absolutely, this is an issue that impacts all of us in every single city, whether or not there's been an official ICE operation in our city or not. It very well could happen, and it's something that it impacts us all, no matter where it's happening around the country. Right. And so one of the things that we have been thinking about is, how do we build up the type of movement that will defend our immigrant community, but also that can fight for the end of ICE in the first place, right? This is an inherently oppressive force that has been in place since 2003 with the sole purpose of targeting our immigrant community. And we have to think about why, right? The state violence that we're seeing, it's not some aberration under Trump. It is an extension of the state forces that have been entirely designed to oppress working class people, and particularly marginalized communities like our immigrant community, because what else keeps us scared, right? What keeps immigrants who are working in horrible conditions and for absolutely unacceptable pay, what keeps them doing so? Fear. What keeps working class people, black and brown, white, people from all different backgrounds, from coming together to fight against a system that is oppressing all of us? Fear, right? Or scapegoating. We see our immigrant community scapegoated for the problems that we see throughout our country. When are immigrants really taking your job? Or is the entire system designed to keep working people from making a living wage? Or are corporations sending jobs overseas so that they can maximize their profits, right? And so I think our fight back starts with an understanding of the nature of this system and why these things are happening in the first place. And then the fight back is also going to require people, our communities, coming together to assert our power. Because as much opportunities as city council might have to implement policy, the state might have to implement policy, our federal government might have to implement policy, they won't do it just out of their good graces. It's going to have to be the people who force those type of changes. And so I think our first step is building the type of movement that can speak truth to power, that has clarity as to what is happening in this moment, and is motivated and determined and organized to create that kind of change, to push for that kind of change, to fight for that kind of change. And so that's what our work has been centered on. How do we build that movement that's going to hold our officials accountable? And I think our work in the Triangle has been a great example. And this has actually been statewide. But we fought against a horrible anti-immigrant bill, SB 153. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that, but it basically was going to force cooperation between state police and ICE. And that was only vetoed by Governor Stein because we were outside his door, literally. And that's the type of thing that we're going to have to do now.
Right on. Yeah, I appreciate that conviction, and I appreciate you looking through this through a lens of systemic ills. It is bigger than ICE policy. It is about systems that continuously oppress us in so many different ways, and about how we react or fail to react to these systems. And kudos to you and the other organizers. I saw an article by, I think it was in The Observer, about my sister Carol Ollinger, who I just saw at one of your rallies last week, works with Action NC, who's been organizing here for years, and how she is in this fight. You know, a fight, unfortunately, that a lot of organizers are sitting out of that I've seen that want to focus on the internal, some of the internal fixes, like I want to feed folks, absolutely necessary. I want to house folks, absolutely necessary. But how do we get to the point where we know that we're pulling our resources and our vast resources in this nation to where we don't have to fight starvation, where we don't have to fight homelessness. And I think those things through organizing, through keeping a systemic lens are possible. I wanted to also mention that the City Council has on its desk and in its inbox some options for what we can do as a city here in Fayetteville. Among those options, and I'll post this in the comments of the link to this broadcast. One of the options is a Fourth Amendment workplace resolution, one that's I know has been spread by Sierra, North Carolina especially. It's already been passed in Carrboro and Durham. Mm-hmm. How we stand up for protection of the Fourth Amendment. Also, transparency and accountability policies that require quarterly reports to the City Council about any ICE interactions with the FPD, and mandate things like city manager approval for any FPD participation in an ICE joint task force. Community education, something that you mentioned. How do we talk about, in a very frank way, about the resources that are available to all of our community? How we even connect them to people like the Carolina Migrant Network or Sierra when they feel under threat. Another option was a resolution in support of immigrant communities, which Chapel Hill has already done, and which sadly Fayetteville has voted against. Even as recently as 2024, the Fayetteville City Council, and I believe there was even something on the agenda last year where, again, was denied. But just a simple resolution saying we value our immigrant neighbors, we stand in protection of our immigrant neighbors, and this is an affirmation of our shared values. That seems like the minimum we should be doing in this moment. And I think that with all that's going on, that there are a lot more people who are willing to support something that's that elementary in terms of assessing and sharing our values in that way. We are almost to the close of our hour on this show, Kristen. I wanted to make sure that I give you some time to talk about or invite the public to any events you have coming up, or make any final statements as we say goodbye.
Sure. So as far as keeping up with the work that we're doing, I absolutely invite all of you to follow us on social media so that you can be updated about things that we have coming up. We have an Instagram, it's at PSL Fayetteville NC, as well as a Facebook, which is also PSL Fayetteville NC. Please follow us there to get updates. In terms of what's going on in the fight right now, we are currently working with students at FSU, FTCC, and Methodist to organize a walkout and rally in participation with the National Day of Action that has been called in solidarity with the people of Minnesota on Friday the 30th. So please keep watch on that. If you are a student or you know a student who wants to participate, please connect them to us. And if you have any thoughts or interest in supporting, please reach out to us about that. There's a lot coming down the pipeline, but I think this is a major opportunity to reignite the student movement in Fayetteville, which, like you said, Sean, has been critical to bringing about major change in this city. So I'm super excited, and we're super happy to support them in doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Kristen. I appreciate the work that you continue to do. We're going to go ahead and sign off for the day. We're going to ask everybody to show up, continue to come to meetings. Thank you, everyone who is listening this morning. Thank you for caring about Fayetteville enough to do so. Thank you for being willing to fight for a better future. This has been the Fierce Urgency of Now. I'm Shaun McMillan, council member for District 8, City of Fayetteville. Remember, now ain't the time to be scared. It's all of us or none. Thank you again. Have a great one.